I'm always really inspired by people who take the time and effort to start a podcast and keep it going.
Yes.
And have a full-time business.
Yes.
And a family. What kind of inspired you to do that? And what impact has that had on your business and personal brand itself?
The biggest myth that people say, oh, podcasting is so easy. Genuinely, it's one of the hardest things. And I was that person. It's hard work. And there are some days where I'm just like, do I have time to be doing this?
Yeah.
I'm actually terrified of public speaking. I really had to be the face of the business. I think building my own personal brand within Mother Tongue has been probably one of the best business decisions I've ever made.
Maryanne, it's a pleasure to have you here. Welcome to the Kelly Lundberg podcast.
Thank you. I'm actually, not going to lie, I'm slightly terrified.
Oh,
I'm
not
very
at all.
excited.
There's no audience.
No, this is true.
There's
this
just
is
people
true.
listening now when they get this episode.
You think I'd be used to it by now, but no.
Well, why don't you give everyone a little insight into maybe why you should be used to it now? What is it that you do? Give us a wee backstory.
I actually wear many hats at the moment, so it seems. I am mum to two. Mm-hmm. I have another one on the way. And
congratulations.
Thank you very much. I run a PR agency in the region, a boutique PR agency called The Comms Club. And then I also run a podcast called Mother Tongue, which is all about parenting, expat parenting to be specific.
Yeah, and the reason that kind of reconnected was about coming on podcasts. And I'm always really inspired by people who take the time and effort to start a podcast and keep it going.
Yes.
And have a full-time business.
Yes.
And a family. What kind of inspired you to do that? And what impact has that had on your business and personal brand itself?
Podcasting is one of these things, I'm sure you'll agree with me. It is the biggest myth that people say, oh, podcasting is so easy. It's so easy to make and create and put out a podcast. Genuinely, it's one of the hardest things. And I was that person. I remember I've had the PR agency now for about 7 years, I think. And it was when I was pregnant with my first little boy. I was going on a walk every single day with my neighbor who was also pregnant. And she was like, oh, we just talk all the time. We should start a podcast. And this was a friend of mine who, bless her, she's lovely, but she's a stay-at-home mum, and she was like, it'll just be super easy. We can just talk at home and we can create some great content because our conversations are so interesting. I was like, yeah, okay, sure. This sounds like a horrible idea. I tried to put her off for as long as possible, and eventually she convinced me. And so Mother Tongue was born, and I was like, let's just try an episode. And if it's terrible, we'll just never release it. And if it's okay, then we'll do another and another. And it just kind of snowballed into what it is today. And it was never the PR agency. I had a very strong intention that I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and I hustled really hard to get it off the ground. And there were some interesting days at the beginning.
Yeah.
But the podcast just kind of happened, and something that was a hobby turned into the beast that it is today. And I absolutely love it. It's hard work, and there are some days where I'm just like, do I have time to be doing this?
Yeah.
But there's something really rewarding about podcasting. And I think from a personal brand perspective, we were talking about this off air, and when I started the agency, I never really thought of myself as a personal brand. Mm-hmm. It was always the Comms Club. That kind of came first. And I always hid behind that. And I would never have done an interview. I never would have presented anything. I was very much behind the scenes, as it were. I'm actually terrified of public speaking, which sounds a bit ridiculous. But then when Mother Tongue appeared, I really had to be the face of the business. And it took me a really, really long time. I remember the first time I ever spoke to camera on an Instagram story, I was like, this is so cringe. I cannot do it. I cannot stomach it. I think building my own personal brand within Mother Tongue, and as the Mother Tongue grew, has been probably one of the best business decisions I've ever made. And I think without that, Mother Tongue wouldn't be where it is today.
Yeah, and where is that now? So is that something, are you in the position that you monetize it? Is there brand partnerships? What comes from that?
Yeah, so it's a real mix of things now. And again, I wish there was more strategy to our growth. But now we have listeners in 44 different countries around the world. We've had a load of international guests. The podcast is on Emirates Ice Entertainment. So whenever you get on an Emirates flight, you'll see the
That's
podcast.
amazing.
Which is quite fun. Every single time I go on, I find myself. I'm like, look,
okay,
kids, it's mummy. She's on the plane.
That's brilliant.
We launched a product about 2 months ago, which we've coined a pod book. It's kind of like an audiobook condensed version of our podcast that covers the first 5 years of motherhood. And we've interviewed experts from around the world, and that is exclusive with Audible, Amazon. Nice. So that was a massive thing for us as well. So yeah, there's lots of fun things in the pipeline. I was on a very exciting show earlier in the year, which I'm hoping will lead to bigger things later in the year. So there's just things that keep popping up. But yeah, definitely the distribution side of the podcast is something that we're looking to do more and more. And the sponsorship, I mean, we've been trying to monetize it for a few years now, and every season is better and better and better. Yeah. But my gosh, it's quite a hard slog.
It's great that the honesty piece is that it is not as easy as people think. Because the actual idea of having the chat with your neighbour, that's easy.
Oh, that's the best bit.
Yeah, and us sitting down here, it's the production, it's the edit, it's the booking in, it's the consistency. It's the biggest thing that I see where people potentially go wrong with podcasts. I say wrong. That's is where it peters off, is the lack of consistency. But I think one thing that stands out with you doing the podcast is the opportunities that has come from doing that. If you were saying, I'd never have done that, for one, the speaking in the public speaking
for sure
would be in a very different position.
Totally.
But that and the connections that you've made.
Yeah, I think, do you know what, Dubai also, I don't know if you feel the same, but I grew up in the UK and I didn't go to university. I went straight to London. I did a lot of work experience for many years. And for me anyway, and I know lots of people disagree with this, London just didn't feel like an inspirational place. Everything felt like it was totally out of my reach and that nothing was possible. And then I moved to Dubai, and yes, I was quite young and probably a little bit naive, but it just felt like this land of opportunity, and that anything you wanted to do, you could achieve if you worked hard enough.
I am with you on that. That was me at 21 years old when I arrived. Exactly the same. Anything is possible. Yeah,
and it's a great feeling. And I feel like having the podcast has really brought back that kind of drive and the inspiration that anything is possible. So occasionally I come up with these really wild and wacky ideas, and I think I'm gonna go for that. And it doesn't always happen, but I think if you work hard and you're constantly trying to grow your brand, your personal brand, your business brand, whatever it is, you will make some movement.
Yeah.
My next thing is Netflix. I'm like, maybe I'll just have a Netflix show. Maybe we'll take Mother Tongue to Netflix.
There's an inspiration. Well, the two friends did that to the organisational series.
Exactly.
So as you say, anything is possible. That was very much my mantra, and starting a business at 24 years old, going 100%, anything is possible. And what's the worst that can happen?
Exactly.
You go back to another job, or you close down the podcast because it didn't get views, or whatever.
Exactly. And also I feel everything in life, sometimes it's small, sometimes it's large, failure happens. And I really try now to look at failure as something positive, something that you can learn from. There is always a takeaway. And if it's not necessarily failure, maybe something's happened in business that you didn't quite like the way it turned out, or a personal relationship or anything. And I often, as anyone probably would do, you feel down about it for a while, but then there's always a takeaway. There's always something to learn from that. And then I try and hold on to that and make it something that's positive to move forward with.
The same anything is possible attitude that made you start the Comms Club then?
Yeah, yes. There were a number of other things. I came to Dubai with no job, and my cousin very luckily worked in recruitment, and she helped me find my first job here. And I went through a series of different companies in my first 5 years here. And I had different bosses, between you and me, all male, from different parts of the world. And every single time I moved to a new company, I was like, this one's going to be the one. This one is going to be the one that makes me feel like I really want to work hard for them. It's going to inspire me, that's going to value me. And every time it just didn't happen. And I genuinely got to a point where I was fed up of working with people who weren't working hard. It was frustrating that the people at the top of the businesses weren't putting in the graft. And I was like, well, if they can do it by doing nothing, surely I can do it by doing something. So I quit and had no clients, no nothing. And I remember my first ever client, they were like, we're going to give you a trial. I was really young, to be fair. And I'd come from being like an account manager to starting my own business. I mean, looking back on it now, I was like, you are crazy.
That naivety that we talked about earlier is a good thing.
Yes,
it's a good thing.
Exactly. And I remember a friend of mine said to me, he was like, you can't start a business without a business plan. He was a marketeer back in university. And I was like, no, you're wrong. I don't need a business plan. I'm just going to wing it. Yeah. And it's now blossomed into what it is today. And I never wanted to grow it to a big agency. My parents work in an industry where they employ 80 staff, and my dad has always said to me, don't employ too many people. It is a nightmare. And it's always stuck with me. But when the kids arrived, we had to grow the team, and now we're a team of 5, and I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't change it for the world.
That piece there about the advice and you need a business plan. I've actually had quite a few people on the podcast saying exactly the same. You don't need a business plan. No. If you're looking to get funding and you need something else, like sure, there's a time and a space. But if you're going, no, I'm going to pursue this, it's going to be just me. This is what I'm going to do, and try it. Exactly.
I think there are certain businesses where you can benefit from having the structure of a business plan, just because some businesses require more support in lots of different areas. PR is not one of them. A PR agency, it is as simple as you start up, you get clients, you grow from there. You know, Mother Tongue, what we're trying to do next with Mother Tongue will possibly need a proper business plan, which I still haven't really got my head around how to do one of those yet. But yeah, I think if you know in your heart what you want to do and you have an attitude that you're going to go out and go and get it, and you're willing to work hard, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be okay. And you figure out the rest as you go. And that's the other thing about Dubai. I feel like everybody is always so willing to support and help. I mean, there are some industries that are very, very competitive, but from the people that I have worked with over the years, especially in comms, I mean, I know lots of people who own PR agencies in this market, and they've always been so incredibly kind and collaborative, and I've just have nothing but respect for them, to be honest.
I think that's a bit of a myth, isn't it? That and I certainly in the PR, because I again know quite a few, that everyone seems to help everybody. Whereas I think there would be that myth of, no, we keep our clients to ourselves, and it's not the space that we're in. But
no, it shouldn't be like that. And I think if we can all work more collaboratively, that's kind of where the magic happens, really.
Absolutely. So when it comes to PR, I always kind of push clients into thinking about obviously themselves as a personal brand, but their story and how they can get coverage that would be of interest to media, publications. How do you help people look for that great story so that you can get them coverage for PR?
We tend to focus on 2 different things, and it very much depends on the person and their background. But we tend to focus more on their expertise, like their brand expertise, as opposed to their personal background story. For example, we're working very randomly with a mattress company at the moment, a luxury mattress company, and the MD he's an expert in sleep. So we very much focus on him as the sleep expert, and that's the narrative that we spin for him in order to pitch him as the expert to sell the mattresses. So it's more finding that kind of angle. I feel like the media landscape is changing so quickly here at the moment. And I think in 10 years' time, PR is going to look totally different. So my job at the moment is trying to stay ahead of the game, or almost predict what's going to be happening next. Because PR, compared to 5 years ago, is not the same thing anymore.
What do you think it's going to look like?
I think it's going to look more like a hybrid between marketing and social and PR, but less about your bread and butter press releases that we were so used to sending out to 200 people at one go 5 years ago. You know, I try not to send out any press releases anymore.
That's interesting.
It's more targeted pitching or picking up the phone to editors that I've known for years and years and years. If I send out a press release, not many people read them. If it's a very big story and it's big news that is, regionally of interest, then yes, there's still a time and a place for it. But by and large, 5 years ago, we would send out a press release for a brand once a week. Whereas now, lucky if it's once a month. Much more of a tailored hands-on approach than the mass approach that it used to be. But that's because Dubai it's a small place and extremely overcrowded.
Yeah.
People forget that. I mean, I think there's 9 million people living here in the UAE now.
As many as that now? Wow.
Yeah, but that's still, if you think about Saudi, there's 35 million, I think, in Saudi. And so Dubai is so small, and we have double the amount of businesses, probably triple than they do in Saudi. So everyone is competing for that space. And I can just imagine what a journalist inbox looks like at the end of every day.
Nowadays.
It would give me such anxiety.
Yeah.
I have a thing about emails being cleared before the end of the day. I don't think I'd be able to be a journalist here, sadly.
That's a really kind of good tip for someone that's, thinking about trying to generate their own PR, less about kind of, big press release, more about what can I pitch to someone, or what could they be interested, make their job much easier for them.
Yeah, and individualize it. I think that's the key thing. Sell something in to a magazine or an editor that is unique to them and their title, not something that you just blanket to everybody. That's what we try and do. We try and find a particular story and pitch it into a title that we think is going to be relevant for that particular story. And the success rate is normally a lot higher. Not always, but normally.
It is. And what about the influencer side? So that must have had a big impact and reach. And it's not just about, there's the amount of publications here when I first started, the dying of publishing industry in that space. Influencers. What's your take?
Do you know what? I find the influencer market fascinating, and I would never say I'm an influencer because I really don't think I am. But I see the other side now through Mother Tongue with PR agencies contacting us to do things. Yeah. I actually find it quite funny, the different requests we get and how people approach different things. But
you're seeing it from a business side of, hang on a minute, this is not how I would pitch this.
Yeah. And also the way that people just send out gifts willy-nilly and then a week later say, okay, can you make a reel on that? And I'm like,
you didn't,
No. No, I would have never agreed to have this gift if there was something attached to it.
Yeah.
Especially because, I don't know the brand, or there's been nothing.
Yeah.
But no, influencers, I think they're either incredibly valuable and they can really make a business, or they are a total waste of money.
So give me your take on that, because I think you've got a very interesting perspective, that you've got the PR side and you've got the side where people see that you have reach and influence because you've got an audience. So give me an example, one or two, of a terrible way people have approached you to do something, and maybe a really good example.
Approach us as an influencer,
because you can see it with both lenses. You know?
Yeah, the gifting thing is one of my pet peeves. I really hate it when people they just send you an Instagram message or an email and they say, "Hey, I'm from such and such brand. They want to send you a gift. Can you send your address?" I'm like, "Okay, cool." And normally I'm like, I'm not gonna do your job for you. So yes, you can send me a gift. And then a week later they say, "Hey, where's the coverage?" And I'm like, "What coverage? What are you talking about? We never agreed this." And they're like, "Oh yeah, no, we need a reel." And I'm like, "A reel? This was actually for some sun cream." I was like, "We normally charge X amount for a reel, and you've sent me something that's worth 100 dirhams. Like, had you just been upfront with me at the beginning, I'd like to send you this. In exchange, we'd like X, Y, and Z. I would have said, "Oh, that's really kind of you, but I won't be accepting your gift today." Yeah. It's almost like they're trying to trick you and then make you feel guilty that you've received a free gift but not given something in return. And that is that's a pet peeve. I've had other things where we've agreed to a certain amount of deliverables, and then they've come in and tried to change the whole thing. And they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm really sorry. We just forgot to tell you."
Well, people actually say that.
Yes.
Credibility down.
I'm like, okay, cool. That doesn't mean it's okay, and we're now going to completely change everything. I mean, sometimes the way people do business is just.
So
wild.
How would you say, if someone wanted to work with an influencer to grow their reach, whether it's their product or service, how would you do it from a pitching perspective, even with the PR piece?
It's very, very tricky now, and it always depends on the brand, I would say, because if you match the brand with the right influencers, the influencers who also really believe in your brand, you're going to create that genuine content for one. And 9 times out of 10, they'll probably create genuine content in a barter setting, content in exchange for a product or whatever it is. which is great. And I also think if you can find the people who genuinely love the brand, it's always going to come across to the audience so much better. And maybe they're going to work together on a more long-term basis, on more of an ambassador basis, which from a consumer standpoint always looks so much better.
Yeah, agreed.
Because they're constantly talking about one brand and they show that they actually really love it, instead of talking about one brand and the next day talking about their competitor, which happens the entire time, which again blows my mind. Totally blows my mind.
Yeah.
The other thing is I think brands do need to stop thinking that they can send, you know, something worth 500 dirhams to an influencer. I'm not saying us as an influencer, because we are not as big as most of the people in this region. Yeah. But, you know, if you want some good content out of an influencer, put aside some budget and pay them and lock in the deliverables. Be very, very clear on what you want and what you can give. And that is the best way to start a relationship, because otherwise, 9 times out of 10, if they don't really believe in the product and you send them a freebie, you're going to get something half-assed out of it. It's much better to pay them and then they have to deliver the content. It's like a service, isn't it? Yeah. If you wanted someone to design a website for you, you wouldn't be like, oh, I'll give it to you. I'll give you X, Y, and Z, and in exchange you can design my website, because the website will probably be rushed and a half-assed job. Whereas if you're like, right, I'm going to pay you 10,000 dirhams, please go and create me a website, it's going to probably be beautiful. Yeah. So people need to, the whole influencer game is very much changing, and I think people need to start setting aside budget to invest in influencer marketing.
And see it as a serious marketing strategy.
Yeah.
Rather
as opposed
than,
to,
fingers crossed and let's see if I get a few more likes or a few followers out of this.
Exactly. I mean, certain industries are a bit different. And for example, F&B, you know, most people will go and have a nice free dinner in exchange for some stories. And that does generate some awareness. But I think products, especially now, I think you need to put some spend behind it if you're going to go down the influencer route. Otherwise, just don't bother. Yeah. But it is essential. Yeah. I mean, I think 360 now is the most important when it comes to comms. You can't just do PR and send out press releases and think that that's going to solve all your problems. You've got to be covering the basis when it comes to marketing. So your socials, your normal, just bread and butter marketing, digital marketing, PR.
Yeah. What would you say then is the biggest myth in the PR industry?
The one that I hear all the time is when it's really quiet over summer. Oh, we must do more PR. You know, we're really quiet because there's not enough PR out there. I'm like, PR is not going to solve all your problems. Honestly, it's bizarre. And also the theory that press releases will just fix everything. I'm like, no,
it won't.
No. Especially with smaller brands out there, I understand that, you know, when they approach a PR agency and they're startups and they're putting money into something on a monthly basis, they do think, oh, this is going to be my break. You know, this is going to be my big break. It's going to change everything. And actually it doesn't. But, you know, sometimes you have to spend money to make money. And that's the pain point of starting a business. It's not cheap. It's not something you can necessarily just do with no money in the bank. You can do it on a budget, sure. But yeah, I think sometimes a lot of people think that PR will just make your business boom. Done. Yeah, and it's just not the case.
And I think that's why when I talk about from a personal brand perspective, I introduce the 7 slices in the book from DC the Lemon, and Spotlight, which is your PR, is one of the pieces. So when it comes to marketing your personal brand, what I get a lot is people go, I need a LinkedIn account. LinkedIn is just one social media platform. Social media is just one slice in the whole scheme of Spotlight, speaking opportunities, your strategy that you're going to go about, and how do you stand out as well. So it's just education, I think, is also another huge part in supporting people on that journey as well.
It is. And actually, that's the thing. I'm really excited about reading your book and looking at all this, because I feel like it's going to spark a lot of things off in my head. I think nowadays, especially women, I was reading a book recently called Rushing Women Syndrome, and how women, as women, we just tend to rush all the time, and we're so busy doing everything that we actually never stop to give ourselves spaces to be creative and to think. And I think if we could stop a bit more and be, you know, just to think and see, what are we going to do next? How am I going to take this business to the next level? That we'd probably spend our money more wiser. We'd grow our business in a better way. I've been rushing around for so many years now. And occasionally, if I go on holiday, I might have a couple of hours where I don't look at a screen. I just sit there in silence. And actually, the things that come to your mind, it's just like, why don't we do more of that? I think that would really help.
I love that. I'm looking forward to doing that next week when I go on holiday, have a little alone time.
It's hard though. It's hard. I feel like we've become so addicted to our phones, to our laptops, to just constantly being connected. I don't know at what point I became available 24/7, but
the day you started your business.
but it's bizarre, isn't it? You get this notion into your head, oh, I'm to make a good impression, I must be available all the time. I must respond to emails instantly. And I've spent so many years having absolutely zero boundaries and saying yes to everything that I actually think it's been a detriment to, you know, my personal life as well as my business life. So now I'm really trying to reframe the narrative, set those boundaries in place, give myself a little bit of space, because surely no one can expect you to do anything if you're totally running flat all the time.
You talked about what was next for Mother Tongue, and there's exciting opportunities coming up. What's next for the business?
For the comms clubs?
Yeah.
It sounds really ridiculous, but I haven't got as big as business plans as I have for Mother Tongue.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is. I'm really happy with where the business is at the moment. I don't really want to grow it in size.
You don't want 80 employees?
No. No. What I would quite like to do is just really double down on what we are doing and do that better.
Yeah.
I'm going to be taking maternity leave in January, which I never did with my last 2 pregnancies. Yeah. And I'll probably only take a month, but still, I'd like to take this time to really finesse what we do and make that better, as opposed to adding more on my plate and doing everything less better. Yeah. That is the plan, really, for that. Just make sure everything is really streamlined, that we're working really effectively and efficiently and collaboratively, and then start building it up from there. I mean, we are slowly starting to build in other services to the agency in general. So we, by default, almost, we are doing more marketing. We are doing more social. I would like us to be more of a communication consultancy as opposed to just a PR agency. But again, I think that will come with really finessing our internal structure and how we approach things and how we split things within the team. Because we are very different to your typical, well, don't say very different, but we are different to your typical PR agency here. Yeah. We don't have an office. We all work remotely. We all actually mostly work from our client spaces. So essentially we are an extension of them as opposed to an agency that sits independently behind a desk. I mean, the last agency I was at, they were very strict about being at the desk from 9 till 6 every single day and not really ever leaving for meetings. And you could have a 1 hour catch up with your clients per month. And in my mind, communications isn't like that. We should be brainstorming and collaborating with our clients all the time. And you know, we are their communications agency at the end of the day. If they need assistance in something else that's slightly more creative, then we're there to be that sounding board if they need us. And at the same side of things, you know, we should be with the media more, or the influencer, or at events, or networking. Nowadays, I never sit still for longer than an hour. I'm constantly in different places. I mean, I think I've been 5 different places already today, and this is number 6.
Well, I thank you so much for joining us here. Do you know what you're having, by the way?
Yeah, I'm having a boy.
I know. So is that 3 boys now?
No, I have a boy and a girl, and now another boy.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, I wish you all the best. Before we go, I always love to ask a few quick fire questions. Sure. There's a couple on the table and the cards. So if you just push this away.
Oh gosh, an outfit I feel great in.
Yeah.
Can I say then this is something when I'm not pregnant?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because I feel like at the moment I'm very much in that phase where I'm refusing to buy new clothes, so I'm just kind of squishing into anything that's slightly baggy. But an outfit I look great in, or I feel great in, my mum has this jacket. I think it was her mum's. It's like vintage, old school Chanel. I mean, it's very, very spoiling. And it just fits like a glove. And whenever I put it on, I'm just like, I love.
Do you have a picture of it?
I do somewhere, yes.
You have to see if you can send it and we can add it into the video footage.
It just looks great, just kind of draped over your shoulders, or also looks great when you wear it. It's super flattering. It's just a
classy.
Yeah, it's very classic. It's a dark navy blazer and I love it.
So nice.
Love it. just one. Should I ask the other one?
Go for it. What's the next one?
Oh my gosh, my favorite movie and why? Do you know, I feel like I'm terrible at watching movies. I did watch a movie recently that I really enjoyed, so maybe I'll go with that. This year was my year that I was going to read more. Up until this year, I never really read. I was like, oh my God, I'm far too busy to read. Busy like a badge of honor, as I always say.
Yeah.
But this year I've read loads, and I read a book all about Steve Jobs. And then I watched the movie. It was fascinating. I find him fascinating.
Yeah,
I don't know whether in a really great way or a really bad way, but just in general, fascinating.
Yeah, there's definitely a personal brand example and how he showed up and the things that he did and his values, and it's very interesting.
Very interesting. I'm not sure he set a great example of a personal brand, but he's definitely memorable for sure.
Well, yeah, and I think that is in that space, but I think from a personal brand perspective, from a style piece, you know what he wore.
Oh gosh,
from a values perspective, you know, it was innovation, it was pushing the boundaries. So I think in terms of whether we agree or like it or not, there's some things out of that we've all got.
Oh, for sure.
Whether we think good or bad, it's the perception of others, I guess, is what it comes down to.
Genuinely found him fascinating though. He's just, I think there's a lot to learn, both good and bad. But I find these kind of books really intriguing.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you
I
so
really
much.
appreciate it, for being part, sharing your stories, ideas on how those that are listening and watching can develop their personal brand and get it out there.
Thank you so much for having me, Kelly.
Welcome. Do you know about our Brand New Accelerator program? This is designed to help accelerate your personal brand over the next 12 months. This hybrid program includes a 72-page playbook, a step-by-step guide to growing your personal brand. Along with the playbook, you'll have instructional videos that will help you and monthly calls with me to make sure that you boost your visibility and credibility and you're held accountable. Plus, we've included bonus sessions from industry experts, whether that's in PR, public speaking, AI writing, and social media. So whether your goal is to attract more clients, visibility, speaking opportunities, getting in the media, then Brand New Accelerator will help you achieve these goals and so much more. So book in for a call today and find out how you can accelerate your personal brand. If you've enjoyed what I've shared, give it a thumbs up if you are watching this on YouTube, or please give us some love on Spotify, subscribe to this, or if you're listening on Apple, then leave us a review. We very, very much appreciate it. Until next time, bye for now.